Warning, the following episode contains adult language, murder, and violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi everyone, this is the CMP podcast. As always, I am your host, ChristinaPlourd. We are now in the middle of our Halloween special. We are fucking cranking this shit out. We're listening to some crazy shit, talking about some crazy shit, and enjoying the last week of October. Is it fall where you guys are? Is it super hot? Is it super, super cold? Like, I know in, like, northern Minnesota, it's already snowing. And, like, maybe northern Canada, maybe, too. Ours is just, like, today, it was 70 degrees outside. So it's not, like, super fall, like how I like it, like, nice and chill at, like, a cool 50, 60. 70's a little too hot for me for fall. I don't know how you guys feel about that. And the leaves are changing. Some trees don't have leaves anymore. But I like living in New England for that reason. You get, like, the 4 seasons. Like, I want to move to LA so bad eventually, but I also feel like I'm going to miss the 4 seasons. So, I don't know. That's, like, I'm, like, conflicted. Like, do I go? Do I stay? What do I do? I don't know. Whatever. So, today's episode is about, so the reason I include her in the special is because, quite frankly, this bitch is fucking crazy. Like, I thought the hi-fi murders were graphic. This takes the fucking cake, because holy shit. The shit that she does to Sylvia Likens is, I don't know how you could do that to another human being. I really don't. Honestly, frankly. But that's why I wanted to include her. It doesn't really necessarily, like, happen around October, but it's, like, it's just torture. And I know a lot of you guys I like the horror movies too, and some of them are torture. Like, have you guys ever seen the movie Hostel? Oh, bitch. That movie scarred me. Like, straight up scarred me. Watching that guy's face get literally carved from his skull, like, while he's alive. I don't. But, I mean, at least this one, like, it's in October, where, like, a lot of it happens, so, like, it's still kind of fitting. Also, it kind of fits in there, you know? So, let's jump right into it. Before we get started, I'm getting my information from Murderpedia and Wikipedia, just so you guys know. And if you guys have ever seen the Bailey Sarian episode on YouTube, I watched that last week, which is what inspired me to do this one, because I was listening to that and I was like, holy shit, I need to talk to someone about this. And, like, not be looked at like I'm a psychopath, you know? Because I'm not. And yeah, so don't forget to enter into our giveaway on our Instagram. The Instagram is the CMP podcast. And follow our Twitter, our Facebook if you want, our Instagram. I know mostly everyone's on Instagram, but they're there if you want them, you know. And enter into our giveaway. And yeah, and subscribe, share, you know, whatever. Come and hang out with me. Usually Monday and Wednesdays. This week is special. If you're starting to listen this week, you're lucky. You're getting a new episode every day this week. Live it up, why don't you? And then also, let me know, I put this on my Instagram, if you guys want me to do, like, mental health Mondays. Mental health, is such an important thing to me, just because it's something that needs to be talked about. It's an issue that plagues our country, honestly, because people don't take it seriously and think you're crazy. You're not crazy. Like, anxiety's real, depression is real, and any other mental health disorder or issue is real. Like, don't feel like you're crazy, and there's people there who love you and care about you, and so remember that. Do things that make you happy. If you need a break, you take a fucking break. If you want to go for a run to clear your head. You go for a run to clear your head. Do what makes you happy. Anyways, so we're gonna jump right in, why don't we? So, Gertrude Baniszewski, that's how I'm gonna say her name, but I'm gonna call her Gertrude from here on out. Was born Gertrude Van Fossen in 1929, which she was the third of 6 children, so she had a couple siblings, but there's not a lot that was known about her childhood, but she was very close with her father, but not close at all with her mother. They used to argue a lot, and it would drive a wedge between each other, but that wedge was driven even further when her dad actually died in 1940, and Gertrude watched her dad die from a heart attack. It was very sudden, like it wasn't, he was pretty healthy, he didn't really have issues, so I mean, obviously, like, she's super close with her dad. It really affected her, especially with how young she was, 5 years later, she dropped out of school at 16 to marry 18-year-old Deputy John Baniszewski, which she had 4 children with. John had a very violent temper and would even beat Gertrude just because she quote-unquote annoyed him, which that, like, what? That's not, you should never be putting your hands on your wife. I don't understand. Makes me angry. But they did stay together for 10 years before they divorced, and she was granted full custody of their children. After they got divorced, within the next year, she met and married a man named Edward Guthrie, and they were divorced after 3 months when he didn't want to have her children around, which is, like, I'll be fucking damned if you're gonna want to be with me and then not like my kids. Like, your kids and you are like a package, and that's that. And after that, Gertrude and John, her first husband, got back together and got married again, and they stayed together for another 7 years and had 2 more children before they divorced permanently in 1963. So they were together for like quite a long time, and then it was around this time, Gertrude was about 37, but she began an affair and moved in with 23-year-old Dennis Lee Wright, who abused her even further. She got pregnant twice. One, she actually suffered a miscarriage, and some people think that it was because of an assault on her by Wright. So it wasn't that she was actually going to lose a baby. He just beat her, which is super disgusting. But she did end up giving birth to 1 more child. It was a son named Dennis Jr., and that was her last child that she had. So she had 7 children and 6 miscarriages throughout her entire life. So she had been pregnant quite a lot and lost a lot, which is, I was actually talking about this with someone the other day, and I was saying how I think it's amazing that we have IVF and we do have a way for women to get pregnant a little if they need help. Like, they don't have to just be like, oh, I'm not going to have any kids, I'm going to keep having miscarriages. Like, there's other routes that they can go to support them, because I know a lot of people want to be moms, and if you want to be a mom and then the doctor tells you physically can't, like, that hurts, I can imagine, After his birth, Dennis Wright Sr. basically just disappeared and just ghosted her, and that was it, and she never heard from him. She had to kind of figure out her finances, because he had actually been supporting her financially, and now she had to support herself and 7 children on child support payments that weren't coming in very reliably from her first husband, John. And so then she was like babysitting and doing other people's laundry for them just to make a little bit of money. But they were already struggling, but it got even worse when her 17-year-old daughter Paula was 3 months pregnant after she had been with a middle-aged man, a married man. And so that was because now they have a baby on the way, and she's obviously going to stay with her mom. Like, she wasn't leaving, and they were already struggling financially, so it was just, in a way, another mouth to feed, and she didn't know how she was going to do this. She was, like, panicking, you know? It was around this time that that Gertrude's health started declining, and she was chronically ill with a bunch of different illnesses, and she stopped doing her hygiene, didn't eat, and because of this, she had like sunken eyes, and she was super skinny, and her hairline started to recede, and her hair started falling out because she wasn't eating, because she didn't feel good. She began to call herself Miss Right, saying that she had married Dennis before he allowed her, before he left her, which allowed her to like still be looked at respectably, because people kind of looked down on her because her husband had left her, or her boyfriend had left her, and he was 23 years old, and there was an age difference. Like, it's 1963, so it's a much like older opinion of other people, which I frankly think like what someone does with their life is frankly none of your fucking business. I mean, obviously if it's like she's 37 and this kid's like fucking 17, 18, like no, like that's a child. No, but they were 12, 13 years apart. There's other relationships that are 10, 11, 12 years apart, and they're perfectly... I feel like once you get to an adulthood, it's kind of different. Like, just let people live. Like, if it's consensual and they're of adult age, just let them live. Like, people just want to judge everything that everyone does, and I don't understand it. Worry about yourself. Worry about your damn self. So, in July 1965, Paula, Gertrude's daughter, her 17-year-old daughter, met up with Darlene McGuire, who introduced her to two new girls who had moved into the neighborhood, named Sylvia Marie Likens, 16, and Sylvia's younger sister, Jenny, 15, who was required to walk with braces because she had contracted polio. Paula took the girls home to 3850 East New York Street, where they drank soda and listened to records. They were just chilling out, you know? The Likens girl's mother, Betty, was in county jail after being arrested for shoplifting, and Sylvia was taking care of her sister because her mom wasn't around, and in 1963 they weren't going to send the kids to, like a, oh my god, what's the word? Orphanage. There we go. They weren't going to send them there when their mom got out, or like send them to the state or anything. You could just stay at home. Like, they were like, whatever. Betty had abandoned Sylvia's father, Lester, and kidnapped Sylvia and her sister. And then when Paula heard of this, she offered to let Sylvia and Jenny spend the night, instead of just staying home alone without their mom or anything. And Jenny's she just figured she could help, you know? The next day, Lester, which is, remember, it's Sylvia and Jenny's father, tracked down his wife, and he ran into Darlene McGuire, who recognized the description Lester gave of his daughters, and she told him that, they're at the Baniszewski house, and brought him over. When he arrived, Baniszewski introduced herself as Miss Right, and the two struck up a conversation. And during this conversation, we don't know exactly what was said, but the idea came up that Gertrude might take in Sylvia and Jenny as boarders, and instead of going back with Lester, he had spoken with his wife at the county jail, he said. At least this is what was said that he said, where they had reconciled, and they decided that they were going to travel the United States carnival circuit as carnies instead of taking their children with them. So they just left their daughters behind with basically a stranger, and they were like, peace out, we'll be back, see you later, have fun. What the fuck? It's a different time, man, a different time. So no one alive knows whether Baniszewski or Lester suggested that she board the girls, but they came to the agreement, and they would leave her with them and pay her $20 a week to take care of them. He didn't inspect the home before leaving, because if he would have seen that there was no stove, no microwave, there was only enough beds for half of the people in the house. Remember, she has 7 children plus her, so there's 8 people already in this house, so now it's going to make it 10. The only things that Gertrude had in the pantry were bread and crackers, and most of the surfaces at home had thick layers of dirt because she wasn't cleaning. And there was only enough plates and eating utensils for 3 people in the house. So it wasn't a good place for children to be. Like, it was unhealthy. Even Gertrude's kids shouldn't have been there. And now they're adding 2 more on top of it. Like, you're just cramming people in there, and it's not like you have a bunch of food. It's not like you have beds. It's not a livable area. No one should be living there. It should get clean. Like, she should have some sort of money, but instead her fucking boyfriend left, and she's getting different days of child support payments. Like, it wasn't reliable. And in the 60s, a woman doing you're still in the time where some people don't think a woman should do anything other than stay at home. So it's not like getting a job was the easiest thing. The first week that Sylvia and Jenny lived at Gertrude's house was very well. They went to high school, they went to social functions with the children, and church with her. However, this is kind of when it changed. When Lester's $20 payment didn't come like he promised it would, Gertrude threw a massive tantrum, screaming at the girls, quote unquote, "I took care of you 2 bitches for nothing," before forcing them to lie across her bed with their skirts and underwear around their ankles while Gertrude beat them on their butts. Shortly after that, Lester and Betty came into town to check on the girls, and neither of them made any reference to what Gertrude had done to them. No one knows exactly why they didn't, but people assume that it was under threat from Gertrude, like, don't you fucking say anything or I'm gonna kill you and your family. Like, crazy. Like, how are you gonna blame the girls for their dad not paying? Like, that's not their fault. They're 16 and 15. Like, they have no control over their finances. Their parents literally just left them. Like, what? And you offered to take them in. I don't understand. The next week, Sylvia and Jenny went through the neighborhood garbage, collecting old Coca-Cola bottles to sell in order to get money for candy. But when they came home from the candy, even though they paid for it, Gertrude told them that they were stealing. And when Sylvia explained, like, no, we got the bottles and we returned the bottles and we got the money that way, Gertrude said that they were lying and beat Sylvia across the butt with a paddle again. Like, she just didn't believe them, even though Sylvia's like, I'm just trying to get some candy, and provide for myself. She's being resourceful, and Gertrude punished her for it, then told her she was lying, even though there is no indication in anywhere that I found that Sylvia was a liar. Not saying she deserves she's a liar. You don't deserve to put your hands on anyone. Don't ever do that. But it's not like she had been known to lie, you know? So shortly after that, Gertrude's other children told Gertrude after a church social that they were disgusted with the amount of food that they had seen Sylvia eating. And so then Gertrude told Sylvia that she was angry that Sylvia would do something to ruin her physical appearance and force the girl to eat a hot dog with a shit ton of condiments on it, to the point that Sylvia vomited, and then Gertrude made her scoop the vomit up and eat it. And, like, that, what? That's disgusting. This girl literally threw up. And first of all, you have no food in your house. Like, all she had was fucking crackers and shit in the house. So, like, yeah, she's going to eat a lot when they go out and there's food around there that she doesn't, like, she's starving. She's starving. And then to make her eat her own fucking throat, what is she, a dog? Like, what? Not even a dog. I yell at my dog when he fucking pukes and then he goes to sniff it. Because, sometimes dogs eat their throat up. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, what? So then, after that incident, Lester and Betty came into town again to check on them. But Gertrude told Sylvia not to say anything, so Sylvia didn't say anything about the vomit eating incident, which if they said something, maybe her parents would have been like, hey, let's leave then, like, I'm taking you out. Like, I feel like a lot of the time too, we hear stories of people who do things to other people, whether it be kidnap them, torture them, like, different things, but they'll tell them, like, if you say anything, I'm gonna kill them. But like, they're doing a bunch of shit to them, so yeah, like, they're scared, they don't want to say anything. But we also hear of times where the person said they were gonna do something, but then you find out after everything happened that they really didn't have the means to do anything. Like, they were never gonna do anything, they were just saying that to scare them, which is fucked. So now this is kind of when it gets even worse than before. So the incident that follows occurred in August of 1965. So it appears to have been coinciding or triggered with the sharp decline of Gertrude's mental stability. She overheard Sylvia remark that she had once allowed a boy to feel her up. Gertrude then burst into a fucking rage and was screaming bad words at her. We don't know exactly what, but she was screaming at her. She accused Sylvia of being a prostitute and informed everyone else that lived there, her children and her sister, that Sylvia was pregnant because she had let a boy touch her privates. Gertrude then attacked Sylvia, kicked her in the crotch, and when Sylvia attempted to sit down afterwards, Paula threw her out of the chair and informed her, quote unquote, you ain't fit to sit in chairs. So now Paula is jumping in and treating her like garbage. I mean, granted, they went to their mom and said that they didn't like the fact that Sylvia was eating so much, but I feel like that probably stems from the fact that they're fucking starving, so you can't blame them for being like they're, at the same time, they're also children. Granted, Paula's like older. Like, at this point, she's like 18, 19, so like, pump the brakes. Why are you being such a bitch? But the other kid, she had a bunch of other kids, and like, they're fucking starving too. Like, they're hungry. So yeah, they're gonna be pissed, like, seeing someone else who they live with getting to eat and them not. Not saying that they should do what they do to her, because they shouldn't. This is disgusting. And from that moment on, Gertrude only allowed Sylvia to sit in a chair with permission. And around this time, Gertrude began allowing her children, her older children, to use Sylvia as like a living plaything. And their quote-unquote games were ranged from beatings to pushing her down the stairs, and like, they found it funny. Like, what? So it was like, no one really knows why Gertrude, like, she didn't do anything to any of the other kids. All of her anger was just on Sylvia, and no one has ever figured that out. Why? No one knows why she feels the need to abuse her like this. People think that she saw beauty and happiness in Sylvia, and that she didn't have that, and so she encouraged kind of tearing Sylvia apart and torture because she was unhappy with herself, and she felt that Sylvia kind of had everything that she didn't have. And others have also said that she just like went through a mental breakdown, and that's why she did that. People have also said that it was just domestic abuse, and Gertrude was just directing any anger that she had onto Sylvia, and that was just who she picked. But whatever it may be, none of it is okay. Like, she's an absolute psychopath, the fact that she did this to this girl. People have mental breakdowns and don't kill people. So that's what I don't understand. Like, people have anxiety, people get angry. Like, life isn't fucking fair sometimes, but you don't kill someone, you don't torture someone. That just doesn't sit right with me. So yeah. So they also said that whatever it be that manifested the rage, it kind of forced her to justify them in her own head, by accusing her of being a prostitute. And they was said that she gave like bizarre sermons to those children and Sylvia about the filthiness of prostitutes and women in general. Like, she was just very anti-women, and all of the rage was directed right at Sylvia because she felt that she was what was wrong with women, I guess. I don't know. No one knows. The day after Gertrude had kicked Sylvia in the crotch, and this is according to her sister Jenny, as an act of vengeance, Sylvia and Jenny told their classmates that they had seen Paula and Stephanie, who was Gertrude's second oldest daughter. So her oldest was Paula, and then Stephanie was the second oldest, and that they had seen them having sex with boys in exchange for money. But when Stephanie's boyfriend, Coy Hubbard, found out that Sylvia and Jenny had said this, he went to Gertrude's home and beat up Sylvia. What the fuck? And from then on, Coy, encouraged by Gertrude, because once she saw that Coy did this, she was like, fuck yeah, like, keep going, one more person. What? Like, why are we ganging up on Sylvia? Why are we doing this to Sylvia? And he would come to the house a lot, and she would tell him to practice judo on Sylvia. What? And it was around this same time that Gertrude got Sylvia's best friend, Anna Cisco, alone long enough to convince her that Sylvia had been telling boys at school that Anna's mother was a whore. And when Gertrude took Anna to see Sylvia, she told Anna to basically beat up Sylvia and torture her for this. And then after that, Gertrude told one of Paula's friends, Judy Duke, that Sylvia had been spreading rumors about her mother, and told Judy to go fight Sylvia, so they got into a fist fight. And during the fight, Gertrude told Jenny, Sylvia's sister, to punch Sylvia, and Jenny was like, no, I do not want to fight my sister, like, I'm not doing that. But because Jenny said no, Gertrude then started punching Jenny in the face, and then Jenny was like, fine, okay, I'll do it, and then started punching Sylvia. So Gertrude's alienating her from every person that cares about her, and is making sure that she has everyone on her side, and she has basically an army of people attacking this girl. Like, what? What the fuck? So now we're on to probably the most upsetting part of this, is the fact that there were fucking witnesses to what happened who didn't participate in it and failed to say anything to protect Sylvia. That upsets me the most. So I don't give a flying shit who you are. If I live next door to you, if I'm your friend, if I'm your family, if whatever I may be, and I see you physically abusing your child, your animal, your sibling, your parents, your boyfriend, your wife, your husband, whatever it may be, I'm going to either say something to you and be like, hey, don't do that. Or if it's bad enough, I'm going to call the police. And, I mean, this girl's already being like, what the fuck? So, in August of 1965, the house next door to Gertrude's house was purchased by a middle-aged couple named Phyllis and Raymond Vermillion, I think is how you say it. Phyllis, because she saw how many people that Baniszewski had for, because I wrote cared for, I said had for, nope, she had 7 kids and she was caring for all of them. 7 of her own, and then the 2 that she was taking care of. Yeah, whatever. She thought that Gertrude would be a great babysitter for her 2 children, and that she would also be helping Gertrude out by paying her for taking care of them. I mean, yeah, she's like trying to help out. So the couple that moved in, the Vermillions, they had a backyard barbecue so that the 2 families could get to know one another and just kind of hang out. And during the barbecue, Phyllis noticed Sylvia was walking around the yard and she had a black eye. And Paula announced to Phyllis that she was the one who gave it to her. Like, she didn't fucking care. She was like, yeah, I punched her in the face. And under Gertrude's supervision, Paula approached Sylvia with a glass of steaming water and threw it in Sylvia's face. But neither of the Vermillions decided to fucking say anything. Like, what? She's watched Gertrude be like, yeah, do it. And then watched Paula throw steaming water into Sylvia's face. I would have been like, I'm calling the police right now. What? 2 months later, Phyllis went to Gertrude's home because she asked to borrow something, and she was only there for a few minutes. She saw Sylvia again wandering around in kind of a daze with swollen lips and a black eye that had swollen shut. That's how big her eye was. And so she was kind of like, oh, like, what's going on? And so then Paula was like, oh, you want to see? And she took her belt off and began to beat Sylvia with it in front of Phyllis. But Phyllis still decided not to say anything to the authorities or call them. I don't know, like, why not say anything? It doesn't say anywhere that Gertrude threatened them, like, not to say anything. Nowhere it says that. So what was keeping you from saying something? Maybe a different time? But people love to be in everyone's business all the time, so there you go. You're right smack dab in the middle of their business, and you could save someone's life, but you said nothing. I don't understand that. So, around that time that Phyllis noticed Paula beating Sylvia had come home from school and told Gertrude that she needed a sweatsuit for gym class because she didn't want to run around in her clothes. When Gertrude told Sylvia that they couldn't afford one, Sylvia stole one from school. And when Gertrude questioned Sylvia about her new gym outfit, then eventually Sylvia was like, yeah, no, I stole it. Because she didn't want to run around in her clothes. And I definitely, you should definitely be like, hey, like, you cannot be stealing. You need to return that. That's not okay. We don't steal. There's no reason to fly off the fucking handle. Like, you're teaching them life skills. You chose to take them in. You should be kind and sweet and give them a loving home. And that's not what she did. So Gertrude all of a sudden then just left the topic of Sylvia stealing and started talking about how Sylvia was a prostitute and threw her onto the ground when she kicked her in the crotch again multiple times, before then talking about stealing again. Like, it was very back and forth. Like, where did the prostitute thing come from? Like, what are you talking about? And so to quote unquote cure Sylvia of her quote sticky fingers, Gertrude burned the tips of each of her fingers with a lit cigarette. A fucking cigarette. After she did that, then she made Sylvia bend over and hit her in the butt with a belt again. And after this incident, anyone who smoked in her house would start putting their cigarettes out on Sylvia's body to remind her not to steal, to like torture her. And if that's not enough, guys, we're not even close to done. We're still getting there. So then Sylvia was like, well, I'm going to go and try and make some money. So she went to go sell old soda bottles that she found for money. And when she returned home, Gertrude once again said something to her about being a prostitute. And so to punish her for this, Gertrude took her into the living room and forced Sylvia to strip naked in front of her sons and some other boys from the neighborhood on the threat of, if you don't get naked in front of all of them, I'm going to beat your sister. I'm going to beat Jenny. And once she was fully naked, Gertrude handed her a glass Coke bottle and forced Sylvia to masturbate with it in front of the boys. What? Like, what? Like, that's like, you're full on humiliating this girl in front of not only the people she lives with, but the people in the neighborhood. Why? What? She was selling old Coke bottles. I don't understand what the issue is with that. I really don't. So following the Coke bottle incident, Sylvia, she kind of just checked out from that point. It was said she was kind of like a zombie and she wouldn't talk. She would just kind of like space out. Anything that Gertrude told her to do, she would be like, okay, I'll do it, whatever. Like, she was just kind of putting her head down and trying to survive day by day. And so as a result of this, Gertrude decided that she was no longer fit to live with humans and locked her in the basement. And because there was no bathroom in the basement, Sylvia had to use the bathroom on the floor and kind of just live in even more filth than she was upstairs, because it's not like upstairs was super clean, because it wasn't, but it's just even worse downstairs because now there's human stuff that comes out of you. I know some people are like weird about that, so I don't want to talk about it, but yeah. And so now you have the risk of disease, the smell, just gross. And so when Gertrude saw this, she began a bathing regime to cleanse Sylvia, whom she began calling Dirty Girl. This quote-unquote regime, however, consisted of filling Gertrude's bathtub with super, 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 super hot water, bind Sylvia's wrists and ankles together so she couldn't move, and dunking Sylvia in it. And they did that regime once or twice or 7 times or 10 times a day, however many Gertrude was in the mood for, and some days they wouldn't do it at all. And after the baths, Paula would then come in, great Paula, best friends, kiss, kiss, would come in and rub handfuls of salt all over Sylvia's body. Burned body. Like what? Psycho. During this period, Gertrude took in 14-year-old Ricky Hobbs, another neighborhood boy. Wow, because we need another person. She couldn't afford the 7. She brought on the other 2. Now she's bringing on another one. I don't understand it. And she brought her on as her personal assistant when dealing with Sylvia. Hobbs, an honor student from a middle-class family, and he had no previous legal trouble, good kid, just wanted to make some money. I guess she was paying him and stuff. Kind of shifted in personality, they said, following becoming her assistant, and followed whatever order she gave him. And crime reporters speculated that Hobbs was actually sleeping with Gertrude, and that she had basically seduced him into becoming her henchman, because there was no explanation for why all of a sudden he was just like, yep, I'm gonna do whatever you say no matter what. So they think that and at this point she's like 38, 39, and he's 14. You should be arrested, ma'am, for everything. Like, no. You are at that point, I feel like you're a danger to society, and you're a danger to yourself and the people around you. Gertrude's children turned Sylvia into basically a money-making opportunity. Even though Sylvia wasn't a fucking prostitute. She wasn't prostitute. She was selling Coke bottles. Ugh. She charged neighborhood children one nickel to look at the nude body of Sylvia, or push her down the stairs to the basement, because now she lived down there when she wasn't being put on display. That was basically where her time was spent, and it was gross, and she didn't get to use the bathroom because she was using on the floor, so you can only imagine what it looked like. And they weren't really bathing her, they were just dunking her in hot water. They weren't, no soap action. So she was kept constantly naked. They never gave her clothes, blankets, nothing really, and they barely fed her. And when she was allowed to eat, it was in some weird way. Like one time Gertrude made her eat soup with her fingers. Like, obviously you can't eat soup with your fucking fingers unless you're able to cup it. Like, and it's like, if the bowl's not big enough, you can't get your hands around. Like, what? Ugh. Often, Gertrude and her 12-year-old son, John Jr., would make Sylvia clean the basement by, quote-unquote, allowing her to eat her own feces and give Sylvia a container in which she could collect her urine, which she was then made to drink. Stand-up people. Can you tell? Real stand-up people. I'm like seething. Like, I can feel myself getting hot because I'm so pissed off right now. You know? Sometime around this period, Jenny managed to send contact to her and Sylvia's older sister, Diana, who was married and had a family of her own. Jenny explained what was going on that she and Sylvia were experiencing and asked Diana to contact the police to come rescue them. Diana, however, completely ignored the letter. She said that she thought Jenny was just upset with being punished and that she was making up stories so that she could come live with her, and she was just kind of throwing a fit. Also around this time, one of the neighborhood children who had been by to see Sylvia, a 12-year-old girl named Judy, went home and told her mother they were beating and kicking Sylvia. The girl's mother asked what happened, and said that that's what happened when someone was punished and that it was normal. Like, she was just like, okay, that happens. Which I'm like, once again, completely different society apparently, because if my child came home and said, hey, we were at their house and we were beating up Sylvia and kicking her, I'd be like, you can't, what? I would call the parents. Do something. Oh. After that, the Gertrude's Reverend, Roy Julian, visited them as part of a program he had set up to see each of his parishioners at their homes. While he and Gertrude drank coffee, she complained to him that Sylvia had been an intense burden on her, claiming that the girl was a prostitute who had been servicing married men and had gotten pregnant. Just such a disgusting person, she's saying. Apparently. What? Like, just making up bullshit. That's what she's doing. However, at the time, Paula was several months pregnant, so, like, I'm confused. Gertrude said, that her daughter was a virgin and that Sylvia was attempting to pass off her own misdeeds onto pure Paula. She's clearly not a fucking virgin. How the fuck would she get pregnant? She's not the Virgin Mary. And if she was, there would be a lot more like, oh my god, crazy, what the fuck? I can't believe she did that. Like, what? Huh. Gertrude and the Reverend prayed for Sylvia's salvation before he left, and when the Reverend returned again a few weeks later, Paula told the Reverend during prayers that she had hatred in her heart for Sylvia, to which Gertrude then said that that's not true. Like, she doesn't. No, she could. Like, she's being fucking honest. She hates her, which is why she's doing this stuff for her, and you think it's okay because you hate her too, for no fucking reason. Huh. Shortly after this, Diana came by to visit her sisters. Gertrude did not allow her into the house, at first telling her that Lester had contacted her and instructed her not to allow Diana into the home. But when Diana was like, why would my dad do that? Like, we're fine. I'm confused. Gertrude threatened to call the police and have her arrested for trespassing. Diana then hid nearby the house until she spotted Jenny outside and then approached her. Jenny told her older sister that I can't talk to you and ran away. And so at this point, finally, Diana's like, oh, that's concerning. Like, why can't she talk to me? Diana contacted social services, and then when a social worker finally arrived at the house, Gertrude informed her that she had kicked Sylvia out of the house for being physically unclean and a prostitute, and that Sylvia had run away. She was like, she's not here. I don't know what you're talking about. I kicked her out. Gertrude then somehow managed to get Jenny alone long enough to tell her that if she told the social worker the truth, Jenny would join her sister naked in the basement. And she said, we're going to start abusing you too, so take your pick. Jenny told the social worker, yeah, Sylvia ran away. She's not here. I don't know what you're talking about. And the social worker returned to her office where she filed a report that no more calls needed to be made to the Baniszewski house. You know, Gertrude got away with it again. Ugh, just angry. So on October 20th, Gertrude called the police to come arrest a boy at her home. Robert Hanlon was a local boy who claimed that the Baniszewski children had stolen things from his basement. He had come to the home earlier in the evening demanding that Gertrude return his things, and when she refused, he attempted to sneak into the home to take them back. So, because he's like, I want my shit back, like, give me my stuff. And Phyllis Vermillion, remember the next door neighbor, saw Hanlon being put into the back of a squad car and approached the police to speak on his behalf, as she had earlier overheard the argument between Gertrude and Hanlon over the stolen goods. And once again, Phyllis made no mention of Sylvia during this conversation with the police. I don't know how no one's going into the basement. He tried to go in the basement. Why wouldn't you go into the basement? And then you'd see this girl naked on the ground in her own shit. Like, what? So, on October 21st, Gertrude instructed John Jr., Coy, and Stephanie to bring Sylvia up from the basement and tie her to a bed, telling Sylvia that if she could hold her bladder through the night, she could sleep upstairs again. Because that's like torture. I can't even hold, like, when I need to go to the bathroom, I will freak out if I can't, because that's so uncomfortable. When Gertrude checked Sylvia the next morning and saw that she had wet the bed, Gertrude made her dress, took her into the living area where she was once again made to take her clothes off and had to masturbate in front of the boys. Again, with a Coca-Cola bottle, because, Gertrude's fucking crazy. When Sylvia was finished, she was allowed to get dressed, and after a few minutes of silence, Gertrude brought up Sylvia's lies about Paula and Stephanie from fucking months ago, and declared, you have branded my daughter, so I will brand you. And she made her strip naked again, tied her down, and gagged her while one of her children heated a sewing needle with a series of matches. And when the needle was orange, Gertrude used it to carve and burn the letter I and part of the letter M into Sylvia's stomach. And then she told Ricky Hobbs to continue carving letters to spell out the phrase, quote, I'm a prostitute and proud of it. They carved that into this poor girl's stomach while they fucking held her down. What? Who does that? Like, don't you worry, guys. It's not over yet. At some point during this, Hobbs, obviously we know what point, but at this point, Hobbs stopped and asked Gertrude how to spell prostitute from him, because remember, he's only fucking 14 at this point, and Gertrude wrote it down on a piece of paper, and the carving and burning happened again. Like, it just kept going. There was no break. And when it was finished, the carving, which was not only just the carving, but there was third-degree burns left behind because of how hot the needle was so bad that modern plastic surgery couldn't even, just based off her body after, they wouldn't have even been able to fix it. Like, for the rest of her life, she would have had that carved into her stomach if she lived. Just to explain how fucking deep it was. Satisfied, Gertrude left the room and left Sylvia tied, gagged, and naked. And at this point, Ricky, Paula, and Shirley, which was Gertrude's 10-year-old daughter, decided to give Sylvia another tattoo, which was an S in the middle of her chest. And the three would later become confused and argue over whether the S should stand for Sylvia or slave. But the word slave was the one they kind of ended up agreeing on, and that's what the S stand for. Ricky burned the bottom curve of the S into Sylvia, and he then either got scared or just changed his mind, and he made Jenny come over and carve the top half. He threatened her, said that you better fucking do it or I'm gonna hurt you, but Jenny still was like, no, I'm not doing that to my sister, like, you're fucking crazy. Ricky still didn't want to finish it, so he told Shirley to finish the tattoo. Shirley ended up carving the curve backwards, so it was actually the number 3 that appeared on her chest and not the S like they wanted to. So Gertrude then re-entered the room, and she was looking at Sylvia, and she said to her, what are you going to do now, Sylvia? You can't get married now. You can't undress in front of anyone. What are you going to do now? And Sylvia didn't have anything in her mouth anymore, and so she said to her, I guess there's nothing I can do. It's on there. And so, like, I personally feel like at this point, Gertrude kind of, like she knew that she was going to end up killing her, and Sylvia knew that she was going to die. I feel like Sylvia had come to the terms, like, I'm not getting out of this alive, you know? Shortly after I skipped over a line. So then they took Sylvia back to the basement, where Hubbard, if you remember him, that was Stephanie's boyfriend, used her for judo practice for a period before returning home. In the middle of the night, this was, like I said, like, Sylvia knew this, Jenny went into the basement to visit her sister, and Sylvia was like, I'm going to die. Quote, I'm going to die, I can tell. So, like I said, like, she knew this was, like, she had kind of given up at this point. Like, she knew that there was no way she was getting out of here, because there's so many times that she could have gotten out of there, and either Gertrude got in the way, or someone just didn't say anything, and that's like I've said before in other episodes, like, that's even worse. Like, knowing you're going to die, like, there's nothing you can do, like, having to come to terms with that's another, like, level of torture, I feel like. Like, I would, like, people, at least there's some people who don't see it coming, like, not even just with murder either, but just, like, with disease, like cancer, even COVID, what we're going through now, Alzheimer's, dementia, like, all those ones that, like, debilitate the body, like, you come to terms with that, and that's so sad, like, that someone has to do that. I just want to go in my sleep peacefully, you know, good night, and then just wake up, you know, whatever's out there. So after Jenny had visited her sister, Gertrude went into the basement and brought Sylvia upstairs and allowed her to sleep in one of the beds for some reason. She was allowed to sleep until noon the next day, which is October 23rd, when Gertrude woke her up. And once Sylvia was awake, Gertrude and Stephanie took her into the bathroom and gave her a warm, soapy bath. So, like I said, I think that they knew that she was going to die. Like, they all had agreed that they were going to kill her, because after the bath, Gertrude and Paula dressed Sylvia and then told her to write this, basically verbatim, a letter to her parents, basically saying that she had run away. And Gertrude said that Livia needed to open the letter with Dear Mr. and Mrs. Likens. So I think, like I said, like, they knew that she was they were trying to cover their tracks so no one would come looking for her. They would just be like, oh, Sylvia ran away, and that Jenny wasn't going to say anything. And the words that Gertrude told her to write were, I have from right here. Quote, I went with a gang of boys in the middle of the night, and they said that they would pay me if I would give them something, so I got in the car and they all got what they wanted. And when they got finished, they beat me up and left sores on my face and all over my body. And they also put on my stomach, I am a prostitute and proud of it. I have done just about everything that I could do just to make Gertie mad and cause Gertie more money than she's got. I've torn up a new mattress and peed on it. I have also cost Gertie doctor bills that she really can't pay and made Gertie a nervous wreck and all of her kids. So she's basically telling her to just take blame for everything. This is your fault. Tell your parents that you just fucking left and you're out. Like, what? And that was that. They didn't, like, so then no one would come looking for Sylvia and they would get away with it. So, like, full premeditation right here. And she told Sylvia not to sign it. Don't sign it, just send it. I'll mail it, whatever. After she finished the letter, Gertrude began a plan to have John Jr. and Jenny take Sylvia to a garbage dump and leave her there to die. When Sylvia heard this, she ran for the front door, but in her mutilated state, she moved so slowly that Gertrude was able to just grab her just as she reached the front door and drag her back into the house. That's like some horror movie shit right there. Like, so fucking close, so tired, like, I'm almost there, I can almost get out, and nope, then she got her. So, once Gertrude settled Sylvia down because she was hysterical, she took her into the kitchen and made her some toast. Sylvia attempted to eat it, but she couldn't swallow it because she was so weak and she could barely eat ever because they never gave her any food, so she was super skinny, like, she wasn't healthy. So because she couldn't swallow, Gertrude took down the curtain rod in the kitchen and beat Sylvia in the mouth with it. John then took Sylvia into the basement and tied her up while Gertrude prepared a plate of crackers for Sylvia. And when she offered the crackers to Sylvia, Sylvia said, quote, feed it to the dog, it's hungrier than I am. Gertrude then punched Sylvia in the stomach before leaving her in the basement. So, like Sylvia knew she was gonna die, so she was like, fuck you, bitch, like, fuck this. No, like, I'm not taking any of your shit just so you can fucking hurt me again, like, you're gonna hurt me no matter what. I don't want it. Oh, poor baby. On the next day, October 24th, Gertrude came into the basement and attempted to beat up Sylvia. First, she tried to hit her with a chair, but missed and broke it against the wall, which I'm assuming she missed because Sylvia was dodging it. I don't think she was, she was tied up anymore because, or unless she was and just had bad fucking aim. Who knows? Next, she tried to beat her over the head with a paddle, but swung in such a wide arc that it came back against her own face, blacking her eye, and that's what you get, stupid bitch. And so to stop what Gertrude was doing, Hubbard then stepped in and beat Sylvia unconscious with a broomstick because he's a fucking piece of garbage, that's why. And over the course of the night, and into the mornings of October 25th, Sylvia beat the basement floor with the portion of an iron shovel, and next door neighbors said that they considered calling the police because they're just hearing this over and over again at night, but they chose not to. Why the fuck wouldn't you call? Like, she knows that, like, she's gonna die soon. Like, she needs to do anything and everything she can so that someone can fucking save her, and no one did. So many people had the choice to, and they fucking didn't. So then, on October 26th, Gertrude said that she was going to give Sylvia a warm bath, and so Stephanie and Ricky brought her upstairs and laid her in the tub fully clothed. But then they took her out when they realized she wasn't breathing, and Stephanie gave Sylvia CPR, but by this time, Sylvia was already dead, and that was it. So Gertrude then told her children to take Sylvia's body to the basement and strip her naked. She then told Hobbs to go to a nearby payphone and call the police because her house didn't have a phone. And when the police arrived, Gertrude gave them the letter she'd made Sylvia dictate. And in the midst of the police being there and everything, Jenny, Sylvia's sister, whispered to one of the police, "Get me out of here and I'll tell you everything." And this statement with police's discovery of Sylvia's body, ended up leading the officers to arrest Gertrude, Paula, Stephanie, John, Hobbs, and Hubbard for the murder, and the other neighborhood children present at the time, Mike Monroe, Randy Lepper, Duke, and Cisco, were arrested for injury to a person. So there's hella fucking people in this house, and poor baby Jenny was like, I will tell you everything that happened, please just get me out of here. I want to help my sister. Which I don't fucking blame her. That must have been so terrible to just sit there and watch these people just hurt your sister like this, you know? So Gertrude, her children, Hobbs and Hubbard, were held without bail, pending their trials. Cisco, Duke, Monroe, and Lepper were dismissed, which, like, I think they should, I mean, they can post bail, but I still think they should have been charged. So Stephanie's lawyer got her a separate trial before it was able to begin, and the district attorney dropped the murder charges. I mean, I wouldn't say murder, but she had some hand in what happened to Sylvia. She should still be charged, so I don't know how she was able to get out. I mean, maybe because she was so young, but still, like, should still be tried. And so during this time, Sylvia was getting an autopsy because they could clearly see that she had been through a lot of abuse. She was super fucking skinny, like, they needed to look into this. So, Sylvia had 100 cigarette burns on her body, various second and third degree burns, severe bruising, and muscle and nerve damage. And in her, while she was dying, because they said it was kind of a slow death, Sylvia bit through her lips, nearly severing each of them. Her vaginal cavity was nearly swollen shut, but her hymen was still intact. Basically discrediting, even though that there was a lot of ripping and tearing to her rectum, that Gertrude was, that even though discrediting Gertrude's sayings that Sylvia was a prostitute, clearly because she's a virgin, like, and disproved her statement that Sylvia was pregnant and that she's a fucking liar. The official cause of death was brain swelling, internal hemorrhaging of the brain, and shock. So the case was the state of Indiana versus Gertrude Baniszewski, John Baniszewski, Paula Baniszewski, Ricky Hobbs, and Coy Hubbard. And that started in May of 1966. And the prosecution wanted the death penalty for everyone that was involved, including John and Hobbs, who were 13 and 14 at the time, because they had such a big part in it, and they inflicted so much pain on her. Paula's time in court was interrupted because she was rushed to the hospital to give birth to the child that she and her mother insisted that she wasn't carrying. And in a show of solidarity, Paula named the child Gertrude. But that's fucking ridiculous because we obviously know you're fucking carrying a child. Like, it's obvious. You can see when someone's pregnant, especially if you're giving labor. Like, you're 9 months pregnant. You're fucking huge. You can clearly tell. Like, what? People are stupid. So then Gertrude and the children's cases were basically drawn out because they were being represented by 4 different attorneys, one for Gertrude, one for Paula, one for Hobbs, and one for Coy and John, who all are like working against each other and trying to shift blame to the other people, even though they were all being tried together. Like, this wasn't like they each had their individual trials. It's, you're all being tried at once. So it just made everything take a lot fucking longer because everyone needed to point the fingers at someone. Gertrude's attorney attempted to shift blame onto the children, basically portraying her as weak, chronically ill, and incapable of preventing or perpetrating any of the abuse. And the children's attorneys attempted to shift blame onto Gertrude and any of the other children that were involved. But, like, the kids have to learn this shit from somewhere. They're clearly learning it from you. What? The most damaging testimony against her was due to her own self-incrimination. She basically said a bunch of bizarre stories about Sylvia being a neighborhood prostitute and of sleeping with middle-aged married men, as well as accusing her of starting fights in the house. And to basically back up Gertrude's testimony, her 11-year-old Marie was called to the stand to be like, yeah, no, mom's right. Like, Sylvia was a prostitute and she caused a lot of fights, and so she did this to herself. We didn't do anything to her. My mom just lost it, you know? But plan backfired, honey. So Marie originally backed up everything her mother had said until during cross-examination by another lawyer, she screamed, "God help me," before admitting everything she said was a lie, and went on to recount in graphic, blunt detail how her mother and siblings had tortured and murdered Sylvia. So she gave them fucking everything they needed. So Marie's turn against her own family was basically credited to the most of the responsibility for the verdict of the trial. Gertrude was found guilty of murder in the first degree, but because everyone at this point thought that she was going to get the death penalty, there's no fucking way that she's not. She didn't receive the death penalty, but got life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. What the fuck? Like, she tortured a young girl to death and made her children partake in it. And if that isn't crazy and evil, I don't know what is. I really don't. So, Paula, her daughter, was convicted of second-degree murder. She appealed and was granted a new trial, but before it began, she agreed to a plea bargain and pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, and she only served 3 years in prison and was then paroled. She got to get out. Oh my God. Gets better. John Baniszewski, Hubbard, and Hobbs were each convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 18 months in a juvenile detention facility. By the time Hobbs was released, he was 17, and the severity of his crimes really sunk in, and he was obviously very upset about it, and he suffered a nervous breakdown. He ended up smoking cigarettes a lot and became a heavy chain smoker, which decayed his lungs by the time he was 20, and by the time he was 21, he died of lung cancer. So he's the one of the only ones that, like, fully understood what he did, and I think truly changed after being there. But there's no mention of anyone else and what happened to them after they got out, other than Paula, like Hobbs, Hubbard, nothing. So Gertrude then appealed, and she was granted a new trial, but was found guilty. But it was then changed to 18 years to life. And over the course of the next 18 years, Gertrude became a model prisoner, they said, working in the sewing shop and becoming a den mother to younger female inmates. And by the time she came up for parole in 1985, she had earned the prison nickname Mom. Oh my goodness, a mom. So cute, even though she tortured a young girl to death. Oh, love her. Kisses. What kind of bullshit is that? So the news of Gertrude's parole hearing sent shockwaves through the Indiana community, obviously, because they're fucking pissed. Jenny Likens and her family appeared on television to speak out against Gertrude. The members of two anti-crime groups, Protect the Innocent and Society's League Against Molestation, traveled to Indiana to oppose her parole and support the Likens family, beginning a sidewalk picket campaign, because no one wants this lady to get fucking let out of jail, obviously. I mean, rightfully so. Over the next 2 months, the two groups collected 4,500 signatures from the citizens of Indiana demanding that she be kept behind bars, but in spite of all of this, Gertrude was granted parole. And during the hearing, she gave the following confession, quote, "I'm not sure what role I had in it because I was on drugs. I never really knew her. I take full responsibility for whatever happened to Sylvia." No, you don't take responsibility, because you're not taking any of, like, you're saying, like, oh, I don't remember what role I did. I don't know what I did, but I take full responsibility. Like, you're just saying that so they'll let you out, not because you actually take full responsibility. Clearly, because you're still trying to say, oh, I didn't know what I did. I don't know what I did. What did I do again? So I wouldn't fucking take that shit. So she got out of prison on December 4th, 1985, and went to Iowa under the name Nadine von Fossen, and died there of lung cancer in 1990. Paula Baniszewski moved to Iowa and got a new identity. The people on the internet, from my deep dark hole that I was digging, claim that she is still alive and lives on a farm somewhere in Iowa. And Stephanie Baniszewski became a school teacher and assumed a new name. And then John Baniszewski, so I did find information about John, but I was saying like Hubbard and Hobbs we couldn't really find shit on, changed his name to John Blake and worked as a truck driver before becoming a real estate agent and then a minister after he killed somebody. I just got super close to the mic, so I'm sorry if that was, but I need like you to fully ingrained in your brain. He tortured this girl to death and he became a fucking minister, and they all got to change their names and just move on within fucking like 20 years, not even, less than that. But he was never arrested again. He married and had 3 children and has basically been anonymous, only surfacing briefly in 1998 in the wake of the Jonesboro massacre to speak for the first time about the Likens murder, and it's then that he took full responsibility for his role in the murder and that a harsher sentence would have been more just. A harsher sentence would have, and you got out for fucking shits and giggles. Like, where's Sylvia? Oh yeah, dead. Thanks to you guys. What? I'm sorry, this case just makes me so fucking angry because I personally feel like justice was not done. Like, they did not fully serve their time for what they did to her. Because yes, Gertrude was telling them to do it. Yes, they're children. But there needs to be responsibility taken, and I think fucking 18 months, 3 years, even 18 years is not enough time to fully sit with what you've done and pay for what you've done in a way. Like, you tortured a girl to death just because you didn't like her after her family trusted you with her. What? Huh. But anyways, guys, that is it for the Gertrude Baniszewski story. The torture mother. She's a crazy one, let me tell ya. She's a wild one. What do you guys think about this? Let me know what you think. I know it's a super graphic, heartbreaking story, and it's unlike anything I've read before. I've never really read any stories about a whole group of people basically torturing someone to death. Definitely one of my first ones. But let me know what you think. Do you think that they paid their dues and they should have been let out and given another chance? Or do you think they should have stayed there? I think at least Gertrude should have stayed in for life. At least. The other of them, okay. They're children. I get it. But Gertrude should have stayed there, I think. Like, you took someone's life, but you got to live a happy and merry life in fucking the Iowa countryside. Oh, so nice. Anyways, so I hope you guys are doing fabulous for the rest of the week, and you guys are liking the Halloween special that we put together. Hope you guys have some good Halloween plans, but be at your distance, dress up, and do a little like Halloween dinner by yourself or with the people you live with. No reason to spread coronavirus, or else this is going to be around for a lot longer than what we think. Okay, guys? The only way it's going to end is if we all work together. So let's do that. And also, if you haven't gotten your ballots in, send them in. If you haven't registered, register. We need to vote, guys. Nothing's going to change if we don't fucking vote. So vote. Vote, 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 vote. If there's one thing you take from this episode and this Halloween special, vote. Just like that. I know my brother's going to be happy that I'm saying this. Shout out to you, Matthew. So, you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you on the Instagram. Remember to follow me at thecmppodcast. And we can chat, discuss this and any other ones that you guys want to hear. And I will talk to you guys later. Stay spooky and stay safe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.